So 7 years ago, I made the decision to move out of London to the beautiful city of Chester. Not just for the lower housing prices, but for how beautiful and vibrant this historical, cultural city is. And I got my first job there was working for a local newspaper, the Chester Chronicle, and my job was digital, so monitoring these lovely social media comments here. And that's when I realized that a lot of the people who lived in Chester were actually very down about it. They were a lot of things talking about there being no theatre, no cinema, it's a pound shop place, all that kind of stuff. But through my job, I discovered the Chester chapter of Good for Nothing. Good for Nothing is all about bringing like-minded people together to collaborate for creative good and to accelerate positive change within their community. And eventually I became co-lead with my friend here, Holly Nelson. And what we do is we create hacks. Ventures, as we call them, approach us. People who want to create projects within Chester or businesses that accelerate positive change and match our ethos approach us with a problem that needs to be solved. There's a group of communities within Chester that come under the Make Chester hashtag. We are one of those, and we're very proud to be part of that community, which sees a collective realization for creative change within Chester and plans to do something about it. So we create these hacks. And part of that is we have, our members are all very skilled. We have a pool of volunteers that all come together. And when a venture comes to us with a problem, we create a brief for our volunteers. And through that, we then do a full day of work with these skilled volunteers to create a solution to their problem. This involves brainstorming, which you see here. This is the start of the day, where everyone brainstorms. We give them a selection of challenges, usually about 2 or 3, and then they brainstorm, and then they break off into groups, and based on their own personal skill sets, they will attack each challenge throughout the morning. And then basically if we go to the next slide, we then feed them lots of food. We always make sure we feed our volunteers throughout the day. This is often donated by local organizations. We have no money. We don't have any money to spend. Everything is donated to us through people that love what we do. It's through word of mouth. It's through a passion for Chester. So once we fed and watered them, they then break off into their separate groups again. And what they do then is they code, design, write, create whatever that they can produce for the end of the day for the venture that will help them carry their project forward. Quite often, our ventures are actually quite moved by the end of the day, by the passion and the hard work. So we reward our volunteers with a lovely cold beer. There's usually quite a lot of beer involved in our hacks, actually. And this is one of our ventures. This was the Mini Makery. And they are a fantastic organization that create workshops that encourage children to eat healthily through creative workshops. So they create art out of food. They challenged us to help us get into local schools. This venture was our MP, Chris Matheson, approached us with the task of getting more footfall in local restaurants. So out of that, a fantastic company called Stride, who are our members, created this fantastic app here, which is a spinning wheel, which creates various different offers for local restaurants. This is Story House. This is our local cultural centre, and before it was built a few years ago, they approached us to help them make it more accessible for all abilities. So we invited volunteers of varying different abilities to come in and help create the signage that you saw before and a wonderful map to help them navigate the centre. Now, this is the current project we started with 2 years ago. This is the Chester Super Trees, We are very proud of this. And when the plans for this originally came about, as you can see, there's a lot of negative feedback. This was a plan created by a wonderful guy called Steve Hughes, who came to us wanting to renovate a sunken garden in Chester that was very, I can't think of the word right now, but it was just derelict, absolutely derelict. So his plan to renovate it was to create these fantastic super trees that will eventually have growing plants throughout them and create housing for birds and bugs in the middle of this incredibly busy roundabout. And when he came to us, he had a plan for £7,000 and less than a year to have it complete. But rather than say no to him, what Good for Nothing did was come with other solutions. So here we are, £250,000 later, and 3 years later, and this is becoming a reality. So what's next for Good for Nothing? We actually want to make a change and create a legacy for Good for Nothing. So we are actually collaborating with educational expert Una Meehan, and we are creating Good for Nothing X, which will create small Good for Nothings within local schools so that they can create solutions for their own community and be the future of our city. So my ask to you, and I'm going to go to my notes again right now, is that with the idea of rebellion in mind, I'm going to ask you to rebel against social norms. And rather than the presumption that someone else will do it for you, I want you to think of something, a cultural change that you would like to happen in your community and become a leader. Become a leader, find some followers, and make a rebellion.
Thank you. Oh. No, it's great to hear what's happening in Chester. For anyone who's at our PechaKucha a couple of volumes ago, I mentioned about trying to do something in Manchester, and it's still there. So if anyone's interested in trying to do something in Manchester, definitely get in touch with the PechaKucha team, and let's see what we can do to sort of fulfill what Rhiannon just said to us and her challenge.